Sanjeev Sanyal, in his book Land of Seven Rivers and Oceans of Churn, later talks a lot about Kalinga and the Bali Yatra and many things. So talk to us a little bit about the empires of the East.
I think we should, and we need to focus on them for 2 or 3 reasons. One is modern India's gaze has started looking east only in recent times because of China or whatever. In some ways, because the bulk of our maritime activity after independence seemed to center on West and things like that. So thoda bahut attention West mein aa gaya tha. So why we need to talk about the East is that while India's West and East coast both had huge amount of maritime connects with different parts of the world, I see 2 fundamental differences in the interactions of the eastern East coast. First, East coast had far greater institutional support. The kings, the investors, the merchants. So it was like you talk of the empires, you talk of Kalingas, you talk of Cholas, you talk of Satvahanas, you talk of Kakateyas. So they were empires invested with maritime orientation. And I find that very significant because in modern day India we often say that our policy makers perhaps are not looking at the maritime very closely. Whether that's right or wrong is a different issue. So that our past maritime kingdoms looked into the seas and looked at how seas could help them in different ways, I think is very, very significant in showing that Indian kingdoms were maritime oriented. The second is they left a more permanent imprint in the lands they were there. The influence from West has been good, but it's been in cuisine, in modes, in language, as I brought out. Whereas from the East, you had these architecture, you had cultural motifs, you had Angkor Wat, you have Champa, you have the Bali Yatra and its commemoration in Indonesia. So the cultural and civilizational markers of India have been more pronounced through our voyages in the East and in the Near East and Far East. So therefore, I think that we need to talk about Eastern kingdoms a bit more. Kalingas, of course, in some ways immediately after the Ashokas and all that, and that's remarkable because that memory of Bali Yatra is still there, and at one point of time it was said that the whole Bay of Bengal used to be called as Kaling Dweep, and it's a great thing. Modern Orias should feel very, very proud about having ancient kingdom that was seafaring and sea looking for more than 2000 years ago. Then you have also these a whole lot. I mean, you got the Satvahanas, Andhras, you got the Pandyas, the Cheras, and above all the Cholas. And now what Cholas do is, particularly with Rajaraja and Rajendra, so golden 50-60 years, they spread to east to Maldives, they come down south to Sri Lanka, and in 1025 Rajendra Chola goes out and does his expedition to Srivijaya. It is a expression of Indian naval power in distant seas to have sailed across there, and he shows lots of operational savvy in going in. He is expected to come in from the Malacca Strait, and he takes his ships through the Sunda Strait while he sends one force through the Malacca where the Srivijayas are expecting. So I thought great show of intent, great show of might, great operational savvy, and that is again a consequence of certain misunderstanding. That misunderstanding is resolved. Then the typical Indian way of resolution, not brutal punishment of those people, but a satisfactory resolution of